right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. I'm Jenni Catron, excited to be your host for our conversation today. While everybody's jumping in, I would love for you to just pop into the chat. Let us know where you're listening from. It's always fun to see where everybody's from. Just a quick way for us all to connect. So pop that in the chat for us. And then if you know your working geniuses, I'd also love for you to drop those in the chat for us, just to kind of see what is everybody's working genius. Mine are invention and discernment. If you don't know your working genius, that's okay. It's why you're here. And we're going to dive into that today and have a lot of fun and great conversation around this tool of the working genius. I am really thrilled that you guys are here today. I spend my days as a leader helping cultivate healthy leaders to lead thriving teams. I do that with my company, the Foresight Group. We have a team of coaches that work with leaders at organizations of all kinds, just helping them build healthy and thriving cultures. I'm an author and a keynote speaker and all-around organizational health nerd. So I love the conversation that we're going to have today. And it's just why I'm so excited to be able to bring this conversation to you guys. We're going to talk about shaping culture with a shared language, how the working genius creates clarity and helps teams work better together. And before I introduce Patrick Lencioni, I want to just cover a couple quick things before we get started, just so that everybody's prepped and ready to dive in. First of all, if you're familiar with the working genius, I'm glad you're here, right? You already have some understanding. Maybe you've taken the assessment. Maybe your team has walked through it. But here's the thing. Every time I interact with this tool, I discover deeper layers of meaning and awareness. I learn more about myself. I learn more about my team. So if you're here with some knowledge and understanding of the working genius, you're just going to go deeper today. And I love that for you. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're brand new to the working genius, you're in the right place. I can't wait for you to discover the power of this tool for better understanding yourself and your team. So again, we're going to have a deep dive. You're not behind if you haven't taken it before. You're going to be ready to just jump in. We will plan for some Q&A towards the end of the webinar. So you can use the little questions button that's on your screen, and you can submit questions at any time during the webinar. My team and I will keep a track of those and then do some Q&A with Pat towards the end. And by the way, if you stay with us until the end of the webinar, we have some great bonuses for you. So stick around, hang with us for the full hour, because we've got some fun stuff we'll share with you at the end. And then my team from the Foresight Group is here. They're in the chat. So they'll introduce themselves. If you need anything at any point during the webinar, just ping them and they will be happy to help. All right, so I am excited to introduce our guest speaker today, somebody that I deeply admire and respect. You guys, when I first started discovering the power of teams and just the intentionality of building healthy organizations, Patrick Lencioni was one of the first people that I learned from and dug into. I suspect many of you are familiar with Pat and his work through the Table Group. We first connected about 13 years ago when I was writing my first book, Clout, Discover and Unleash Your God-Given Influence. And Pat, you'll remember this probably, but I had a mentor. Pat was kind of a mentor from afar, and I had learned from so much of his work. And then I had a mutual friend that introduced us. And I just bravely reached out and said, would you consider writing the foreword for this book? And Pat graciously, generously wrote the foreword. And we've just had the privilege of connecting through the years, which has been just absolutely a joy. Pat is one of the founders of the Table Group and is the pioneer of the organizational health movement. He's the author of 13 books, which have sold over 8 million copies and been translated into more than 30 languages. As president of the Table Group, Pat spends his time speaking and writing about leadership, teamwork, and organizational health, and consults with executives and their teams. Today, he's going to share with us his latest project, The Working Genius, which is the fastest growing assessment for understanding yourself and your team. So, Pat, I'm so thrilled that you're here today. Thanks for joining us, and welcome. I'm going to let you take it away. We want to learn from you today.
Thank you, Jenni. I remember when you asked me to do the endorsement, and I get a lot of people that ask that, but I loved that book, and I was like, this is a joy. And
So
I don't
great.
always say yes. Sometimes I say yes, and they're good books, and I have to write. And sometimes it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I get to do this. So
Well, I still like, I mean, just it was such an honor and you were so generous and so gracious. And so I just love that opportunity to connect with you, which has been a handful of years now. It's been a little bit,
yes,
but so
it's
good,
been a minute, as my kids say.
right?
All right, we're going to talk about Working Genius. This is the most recent thing that's come out of the table group and my brain as God shapes it in me. And I think I've never been as excited about anything I've worked on in terms of what we've seen it do. And I remember right when we came out with this, like before we knew what we were going to do with it, because it came out by accident. All of my stuff is just by experience. Cody on our team said this is going to be bigger than the five dysfunctions of a team, which has been our biggest book, and it seems to be going that way. This product, this tool that we're going to be sharing with you, is really impacting people's lives, and that's wonderful. And the first thing I want to say about it is that the real purpose of Working Genius, the real underlying purpose is so that people will experience less unnecessary guilt and judgment in life,
Hmm,
and so they'll have more grace for others
I love that.
by understanding how God made them. Oftentimes, we have this thing called the fundamental attribution error, where someone will do something that we'll find kind of annoying or difficult, and we attribute it to their intention. And so we decide that it's a fault or a defect, when in fact, they're just acting in the way they're made. And when we realize that, we can see that it's a feature and that we just need to see it that way. And that's such a beautiful thing. We've seen people in the workplace, husbands and wives, friends, re-understand one another for the first time in a way that turns frustration into curiosity and love. So that's really what this is about. And all grace and thanks to God. I mean, all gratitude to God for bringing this about. So I will say this: this came about a little over 5 years ago because I was frustrated and had been for 20 years at work in ways that I never understood. And I would come to work always excited. And then quite frequently, depending on what was going on at the company, I would get a little grumpy during the day. And I didn't know why, because I loved the people I worked with and I loved what I did. And I didn't have the Sunday blues. Every day it was like, oh, yeah, I get to go to work. And I'd go there excited. And then at some point during the day, I'd get kind of cross and kind of grumpy. And finally, somebody on my team said, why are you like that? And she meant it. She was really curious. She said, what causes that? And I said, I don't know, but I want to figure it out. And that day, with a whiteboard and a pen and the grace of God, I said to myself, what happens when I get grumpy? And I was thinking about it, and there these three bubbles came on the whiteboard that I was writing, like, oh, I think these are the three kinds of work. And then I was like, oh no, there's two kinds within each kind, and there's these six kinds of work, and that's really it. Oh my gosh, when I'm doing that one, I get burnt out and frustrated. But when I'm doing these, I'm really happy. Wait a second, maybe other people would find this useful too. The next day, a CEO saw the model and he was emotional in looking at it, and he said, "This is why I'm so frustrated." And then Matt and Karen and Tracy and Cody and I put this together and made an assessment, and then we put it out there, and thinking maybe people will like this, and about 2 million people almost have done it, and it's growing every day. And the thing I would say before we get into the details is Working Genius is about the kind of tasks that give us joy and energy. So it's not like that test when you're in high school when they give it to you and they say you should be a garbage man or an astronaut, you know. It's really about like two different teachers can both do the same job, but in vastly different ways because of their geniuses. So this is about like two, and we have so many pastors who call us and say, "Gosh, I finally discovered that I'm not a fraud, or that I'm not an imposter. I just go about this differently than others." So that's what I want to say. This is just about how to identify the actual day-to-day work that gives us joy and energy, and the kind of work that drains us of that. So let's go ahead and go to the slides. Okay, what I'm going to do, so there are 6 types of working genius. And what I mean by that is there are six kinds of activities that are required in any kind of work, Jenny. So if you're building a house or planning a family vacation or launching a company or running a department or coming up with a new idea in your church, whatever you're doing, any kind of project at home, at work, somewhere in between, requires six different skills, if you will. Now, the amazing thing is God made it so none of us have them all. We need each other, and I'm a follower of Jesus, the kingdom of God, we need one another, okay? The body of Christ. And so none of us have all of them. And as it turns out, of the six, which I'm going to go through in just a second, two of them are the genius, what we call, those are your working geniuses. And that's like pouring coffee into a cup. I used to have a Yeti mug in here someplace, and you pour coffee into it and screw the lid on it, and you can keep the energy, the heat in that coffee all day long. Because when you're doing work in your genius and the genius God gives you, it feeds you. And you can go home from work after 12 hours and feel, I'm a little tired, but I'm not burned out. And in fact, I could keep doing that because that's how we're made. Now, there's two others. They're not your genius, but they're not the worst. We call those your working competencies. You can do them. And it doesn't crush you. It's like pouring coffee into this cup right here and putting a little lid on it, plastic lid. It'll hold its energy for a while and its heat. And so this is kind of that middle area. The last one is when you pour coffee into a cup and it's got a hole in the bottom of it and it just drips out right away. That's what's called your working frustration. It's the kind of work that actually robs you of energy and joy. Now imagine, Jenny, you go through life and a person doesn't know which of these six things are their geniuses, their competencies, or their frustrations. Well, whether a job is going to be fulfilling or not is really a crapshoot. And most people come out of college or go into the workforce and they take a job without really understanding, now, what did God make me to do? And is this job going to allow me to be that person? The beauty of this is in a given job, a person doesn't have to quit and find another job to lean into their geniuses, to love their work. And I'm going to tell you a story. And I think it happened at a church, if I remember correctly, but this was literally over 5 years ago. When we first launched this, a guy contacted us and he said, I was having my performance review with my boss, and it had been a bad year. And he goes, it was not going to be pleasant. And his boss came. So it was my boss and my boss's boss, and they were going to sit down with me to go over my performance. And he goes, I knew it wasn't going to be pleasant. And the night before the review, he took the Working Genius assessment and he read it and he said, oh, wow. Okay. So he goes the next day and he hands the report to his boss and his boss's boss and says, before we get started, could you guys take a look at this? And they said, sure. And they looked at it and they said, well, it's no wonder you've had a terrible year. This job is horrible for you. This would be a terrible job for you. And he goes, I know. And they go, we have that other job in that other department. You would be great at that. So before they even bothered to critique him, they realized this is a lose situation for you, a losing situation. He said he got moved and actually promoted.
Wow.
Because they understood who he is and what he was meant to be, and how often people get criticized or even fired or made to feel less than because they're doing work that God didn't really intend them to do. So I want to go over these 6 types of working genius so that people can really understand them and apply them in their lives at home and at work, and it can really change everything. Now, before we get started, I'll step back from all this and I'll just say, in the world of business, and this certainly applies to this, there's really 2 major requirements to be successful. And when I say business, any organization, frankly, a family, an organization, a business, has to be good at 2 things at the most basic level. The first is we have to be smart. And this is what education focuses on, and most newspapers and magazines and things like that. And smart just means intellectual capacity. It's things like marketing and strategy and finance and ops and technology. all the decision sciences. Okay. If you're going to have a good business, a good church, a good family, you got to be smart. You got to know what you're doing. This is really important. But it's only half the equation, and it's still, Jenny, I think it's about 90% of the attention. But the other side is actually more important because it allows us to be smarter. And that is, in addition to being smart, we also have to be healthy. And a healthy organization is one that has minimal politics and confusion and really high levels of morale and productivity. People love to come to work and they get a lot done there. And low turnover in that people rarely leave unless there's some massive thing in their life that means they have to leave. In other words, they want to be there. Well, every leader I've ever shown this to will look at the healthy side and they'll go, politics, confusion, morale, productivity, turnover. Oh my gosh, if I could solve those problems, that would be massive. But then they look at the smart side and they go, well, Pat, the healthy stuff is kind of behavioral, right? And I'm like, oh yeah. Is it messy and hard to measure? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I don't really like that stuff. The other stuff I can put on a spreadsheet or a Gantt chart. Let's focus on that. And so what they end up doing is tweaking the dials in the areas that they're not really going to find the answers and overlooking. I like to talk about Ricky, Ricardo, and Lucy and the I Love Lucy show. I was referencing that earlier today. How in one episode he comes home from work and Lucy's crawling around the living room. She's eavesdropping on a conversation with Ricky and some people. And he catches her and he says, what are you doing? And she says, I'm looking for my earrings. And he says, you lost your earrings out here in the living room? And she says, no, but the light, I lost them in the bedroom, but the light is much better out here. And the light is so much better on the smart side. It's easy, it's safe. Nobody has to get emotionally invested. We're analyzing strategy, blah, blah, blah. But every church, every family, every business, every organization, I am absolutely convinced and have been for 30 years that the greatest areas of opportunity for improvement are on the healthy side. And that allows us to get smart. Now, I say that because this stuff here, Working Genius, is one of the most grounded core elements of a healthy organization. Do we understand one another? St. Francis once said, seek to understand more than to be understood. Do we understand one another? And do we leverage one another's gifts in a way that builds each other up? And so that's what we're going to talk about. So let's look at the 6 types of working genius. Boy, these hearts are and things are coming to my screen. I guess those are people sending those out, right?
Yep. They're responding to the content. I love it so much.
I do like that. That's pretty cool to get a little feedback.
Well, I was going to say, I told everybody at the beginning of the webinar that I always learn something every time we do this. And I just you just made more connections of that. I was like, yep, okay, I get it. Yep. It's another layer of learning. So I'm right there with them. So good, Pat.
And even people that have done Working Genius, I know when I go through this, they're like, oh, okay, I got that. Because we're still learning about it too.
Totally. You just keep finding more insights and more layers to it, don't you?
We have a podcast called the Working Genius Podcast for the junkies who love it. And we literally do like product development in real time with people. We're like, okay, yesterday we just had a realization because this is still so new. Okay.
So powerful.
So let's go through the 6 types of working genius. The first one is the genius of wonder. And let me tell you why I love to talk about this. This is a genius, a God-given talent, a really important ability that most people who have it have never been rewarded for it or told that it was a gift. Many of them were criticized for it, especially in school. And even in their lives, people are like, why do you do that? Like there's something wrong. And so there's huge relief in people that have the genius of wonder. The genius of wonder is the people in life that have that ability and that desire, and they get energy out of pondering things and looking at the bigger picture and asking questions. This happens up in the clouds, but they're like, why is the world like this? Is this the best we can do? Maybe our customers would want something more. Maybe we shouldn't continue to do this the way we've done it. They're the ones that ask the big questions, and it's the first genius because everything starts with somebody wondering. Amy, my friend, turned to me one day at work and said, why are you like that? She was just curious. And that provoked me to think about that and to come up with this. And so too many people with wonder in school, they're like, why aren't you focused? What are you doing? Are you daydreaming? And they're up here and they're just like, oh, I've got so many things going up there. And there's other people that don't think like that. In fact, they don't like to sit around and ponder. And life needs ponderers and questioners and people that are up there doing that. And whether you're building a house or starting a company or running your church or launching a new product, you need the wanderers in life. And I live in a family where 2/3 of the people in my family, so that's 4 out of 6, have wonder. And for years, it kind of frustrated me because I didn't know what was going on. And now I'm like, oh, that's so cool that you're so deep and thoughtful about so many things. Okay, so that's the first genius. The next one, and my wife is the one who came up with the gears. She said these should be gears because they really fuel one another. They turn one another. Because when somebody wonders, it provokes somebody else to come along and invent something. That big question they ask, that pondering, makes somebody else go, oh, that's a good question. Let me try. When Amy said, why are you like that? I said, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And I'm an inventor. That's one of mine and yours. And and I love to come up with new ideas out of nothing. Now, what's interesting about this as I say this, I always thought everyone liked to do that. And I love that saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Because when I manage people, sometimes I say, you're going to have a job or you get to come up with ideas out of nothing. And they're like, no, that would drive me crazy. And the very thing that I love to do, other people, it really burns them out. And that's so important to understand because we tend to think other people think and do things like us. So invention is the next one. We wake up every morning, Jenny, and the idea of coming up with a new way of thinking about things or a new plan or a new idea is really, really interesting to us.
Yep, 100%. Yep.
Now, there are some days when that's not what we're supposed to do. And we are drawn to that. My wife will say sometimes, I don't need your invention right now. And that's okay. That's the beautiful thing. I love what you said before. You said about shared language.
Mm.
She can now say to me, I don't need your invention right this moment. Instead of saying, gosh, you're driving me crazy, you do that. She's like, I know you love to invent. And at work, we could say, this is not an invention meeting. So I'm sorry to ask you to set that aside. But today, what we're doing right now is something else. And that's not a criticism of me. It's actually an instruction for how to bring my gifts to that discussion.
Yeah, it just brings you greater self-awareness of, oh, my tendency is I want to go create something new or come up with a new idea, and recognizing that that's not what the team needs right now. I need that coaching all the time. So good.
Exactly. And every meeting, every conversation, every situation calls for different letters. And sometimes they're exactly ours. Like the day before a new thing launches, I don't need to be reinventing it. But I will because I like doing that. So anyway, so invention is the next genius. These first two, by the way, are called ideation. Ideation comes about, it starts with the wonderer, not the inventor, which is a wonderful thing. So W-I. Okay, the next genius is called discernment. Discernment is a little bit hard to, so we'll go forward on this one. The discernment is a little bit hard to, can I make this go forward? Are we stuck? Oh, there it is. Discernment it's interesting. It's really important to understand this. Some people, the way they think and go about doing things, they use they see patterns. It's not linear. It's not based on expertise or knowledge. They have this gut feel, this intuition, and this pattern recognition, and it's kind of multivariable analysis. And you can ask them their opinion about something, and they'll kind of look at it holistically and go, I think the answer is that. And people go, how do you know? And they go, I don't know. I think I've seen this movie play out before. And I'm pretty sure that's the pattern I'm recognizing. And so often they're right. And it's really difficult for them to explain why. It's just a gift that some people have of looking at the big thing and being able to isolate the answer. And I like to talk about Tracy, this woman on my team who has discernment. And what's great is she's had it since she was a child because her friends used to go to her and go, "We don't know what to do. Ask Tracy." And in my business from the beginning, she's a founder. So we've been working together for 28 years. And when we don't know, we're always like, run it by Tracy. And it can be anything. My wife can say, should we refinance our house? Let's ask Tracy. Where should we go on vacation this year? Let's run it by Tracy. What do you think about remodeling this part of our house? Ask Tracy. She has this great judgment. She just looks at everything and goes, I don't know if that's a very good idea. And it's like, man, she has discernment. And some people don't, and they just need to tap into people that do. The next genius after discernment is what's called galvanizing. That's the G. And galvanizing is something that's not one of my geniuses. And I was doing it all the time in my business. And that's why I was getting burned out and grumpy. We realized that every day I'd come to work wanting to do my thing. And people were like, galvanize us, galvanize us, galvanize us. And I thought, well, I guess I'm the CEO. I have to do it. And it was crushing me because it didn't give me joy. Galvanizing is the genius of rallying the troops, inspiring them, reminding them, pushing them, cajoling them, selling to them, getting them on board. And yes, there are people in the world who wake up every day and say, ooh, I hope I get to do that. And they're like, show me a group of people. I need to disrupt them a little bit and get them moving in the right direction or reorient. And they love it. I love to herd the cats or the cattle. I love to get people going. I love to interrupt people and say, wait a second, I have a new idea. Let's go this way. Galvanizing is such an important quality, but for one person, it feeds them. For another one, it drains them. Now, we all have to do things we don't love. And if you're a parent, you know that you don't get to do just the things you love. But there's no reason to go to work and organize your day and your life to lean into the things that could drive you crazy when you can tap into other people whose gifts are different. I have a guy in my team who loves galvanizing. He's a G. And I said, you're going to be the new chief galvanizing officer. He's not the CEO. I have to be the first galvanizer, but he loves to keep things going and ride herd on things. And when I let him do that, it was a gift to him that made his job satisfaction go up. Being able to delegate some of that to him was something that let my job satisfaction go up. And it's just amazing how when we fill our gaps on a team, everyone wins. It's crazy how this works. Okay. These two middle ones are called activation. So after we ideate, we have to activate. The next two are called implementation. And it starts with what we call enablement. Enablement is one of those misunderstood gifts or geniuses. It's the gift that some people have that when somebody says, I need something, they get joy and energy out of saying, let me help you. I want to be the one to say yes. I love to come alongside, answer the call, and provide whatever you need on your terms. That's a skill set that feeds them. And you know, when you go to the hospital and you see that nurse who every time the patient rings the bell, they come in there with a smile on their face, or there's a flight attendant. But there's CEOs that have this too. But that person you go, gosh, whenever I ask you for something, you seem delighted. And they're like, yeah, I actually do love it when people say, I need your help, and I love just coming alongside. As a follower of Jesus who has none of this, this is in my working frustration, I always felt guilty. And I would do it out of guilt, which sometimes you just have to do it because your wife or your husband or your kids need something or a colleague. But it didn't feed me, and I felt bad for that. I was like, how come I don't like just jump up with exuberance? And it's because it's a genius that God gives some people. And it's why there are certain people that are really suited for certain kinds of work, and others that probably relying on them to do that every day is going to make them crazy. So enablement, it's a beautiful skill. It's the glue on a team. Every team needs them. They need people that say, you can count on me to help you, and I'm going to do that. Okay. The last genius is called tenacity. So when you ask them to help, they love finishing. They're like, please make it possible for me to take this across the finish line, to tie up all the loose ends, and to get it done. They get joy and energy out of finishing things. I lose energy out of finishing things. Like I've written 13 books, and I would have written zero if I didn't have people around me with tenacity because I just want to move on to the next thing halfway through the last project. That's not an excuse for doing that. It means I need to get on teams where other people with tenacity will say, Pat, we know that you've lost some of your mojo around this, but we need to get it done. We're going to help you, but you can't just walk away yet. And it's a grind for me to finish a book. And I'm glad there are people around with tenacity that make me do that and that give me grace and know that that's actually kind of hard for me. All right. So we start at wonder and then we invent, and that's called ideation. Then we discern whether it's right, and then we galvanize people. That's called activation. And then we enable and we have tenacity and finish things. That's called implementation. And that's how work gets done. And we need all six, and none of us bring them all to the table. All right. So there we see the different types. Now, there's one more thing, Jenny, I want to explain.
Okay.
And that is, in addition to these, we can just plow right through those, Matt. This happened a while after we came out with this. I thought, you know something, there's something about WD and E and IG and T that's different. And wonder, discernment, and enablement are all what we call responsive geniuses. That means they let other people provoke the action. The wonderer sits and lets the environment provoke it. The discerner lets the inventor provoke it, and the enabled person lets somebody galvanize them to help. The other three like to disrupt things. They're disruptive. They're like, I have an idea. The galvanizer is the supreme disruptor. They're like, hey, everybody, you should do what I'm about to tell you to do. And the tenacity person disrupts obstacles. They see an obstacle and they go, I'm going to explode that and plow through it and make sure we get this done. And it's really good to look at this because if a person is double responsive, putting them in a role where they're going to have to challenge the status quo every day and push people out of their comfort zones is probably not going to work very well. Similarly, if a person is a double disruptive, telling them that they're not supposed to challenge the status quo or they have to stay in their lanes all the time is going to be very very difficult for them. I was once teaching a class at Auburn University, a bunch of seniors, and I had them take the Working Genius, and then they were all getting ready to graduate and get a job. And this one guy said, I said, does anybody have a job lined up yet? And this guy raised his hand and he said, I'm going to be a cold call, door-to-door cold call sales. That's what I'm going to do. And I said, what's your Working Genius? And he said, WE, which means he's a wonderer and an enabler. And I said, oh, buddy, I think you're going to hate that job. And he goes, I already hate it and I haven't started yet. Because the whole job was like going in and getting people to do things they didn't want. And there are people that could do, and he was like, yeah, I don't want to do it. And I said, here's the thing. Taking that job, you are not going to be really successful. You're not going to like it. You're going to lose your confidence. And though I'm a big believer in you can't have a perfect job all the time. If you have a job that's exactly the opposite of what you want to do, it is not going to be a good situation. My first job out of college, Jenny, was the #1 job in America that year. Literally, they listed like the top 10 jobs for college, and mine was #1. But it was an ET job. It was like, we're going to tell you exactly what to do, and you're going to do that, and you're going to finish it perfectly. Don't ask questions. Don't look for context. And I made good money while I got completely unhealthy and lost my confidence. And 2 years later, I left. And I thought I was smart. I was in college and they recruited me, but they never even looked at what I was really good at. They just thought, well, you're smart. We'll give you this job. And it was exactly the wrong thing for me. And looking back, I mean, by the grace of God, I learned things there. But I would probably have said, this is probably not for me. This might be the best job in the world for some people, but for me, it's probably the worst job in the world. So
it makes so much sense.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the one last thing I think we'd like to show people is there's this thing called a team map.
I love this tool.
When a team does this, you can look at their map and you can just look at the green things are where they have geniuses. The red things are where they have frustrations. And just for fun, if you look at this, My team had one inventor, it was me, and a whole bunch of people who hated inventing. So what we said is, we better protect his time because he's the only one we have. We only had one galvanizer, and about half the team didn't like galvanizing. And then we only had one person with tenacity. What's interesting is we were a bunch of people that had responsive geniuses, very little disruptive ones. And that was really wearing out the people on the right side there. And so what we said is like, when we hire our next people, but they have to fit our core values, maybe we can find people that will fill in our gaps. And we did. We hired a couple people. One guy was an IG. So I had a playmate in invention, and Cody had a playmate in galvanizing. And then we hired Julie, who actually had tenacity as well. So it's one of those things to think about. The real thing I like people to think about is when you're hiring somebody, ask yourself which letters are probably important to have. And because like I hired an administrative assistant 9 months ago. Well, there's all different kinds of it. She's my executive assistant. And I said, I need somebody with discernment who will actually look at my life and decide on her own what I need, because I'm terrible at knowing, and then who has tenacity and she will finish things because I don't. And we actually found somebody with that, you know?
So powerful.
But without that, and you don't always get exactly what you want, but you can say, if she or he doesn't have this at all, if it's one of his weaknesses, his frustrations, that could probably be a problem. It just helps us avoid hiring the wrong people and making them suffer, and bringing the wrong people in and making us suffer. So
Yeah. So powerful, Pat. Like just that awareness. Again, I think awareness is so powerful for us as individuals, but then as teams, that awareness of how are we wired? How are we gifted? How do our strengths play with one another? Our geniuses work together. We've had a
yes,
similar dynamic of I need galvanizers around me because it's a frustration for me. And so when I have galvanizers on the team, that's just such a difference maker for us and how we work together.
yes. And you could say, okay, I mean, you're an ID, so am I. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is a good idea, but oh, it just really drives me crazy to think I'm going to have to go up and push the ball uphill. And people are like, no, I love pushing the ball. I
Right?
push it every day. And they'll say, I got it, Jenny. Don't worry. I'll keep it moving. And you can go,
Such a gift.
oh, it's like it's a balm to you. It's
Yeah.
like BALM balm. It's like, oh, you're going to do that? And they're like, yeah, I love doing this.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's such a gift and so powerful. So I love that you shared a couple of those examples of even how that's played out for you guys. I was working with a team recently, and we did their team map, and it was the same moment of awareness of, oh wow, we're missing a genius in one of the, in one area, and so we have to be really thoughtful about that. I think they might have had one person, and we have to be really conscious of that. Yeah, go ahead and speak to that, Pat.
No, it's so true. Because sometimes when you have one person with that, you will often like expel them like a virus, because they will do things that nobody else does. Like, why are you doing that? Like, because I'm the only
Yeah.
one here who does it. If I don't do this, nobody will.
Well, and we learned in that group that there was one genius that was very dominant for most of the team. And we noticed how quickly we moved to, and it was discernment. So they would quickly move to discernment, and they were, they hadn't done the ideation stage.
Right.
So it was really eye-opening, super helpful for us in the conversations we were having. It just gave
Yeah.
us so much awareness and more language for some of the places where they were getting stuck as a team.
Hey,
So
Matt, if this
powerful.
is the last slide, can you go back to so we can see the model and it's like the simple model? Yeah, there, that's great. We had a team once, Jenny, that executives, a multi-billion dollar company, technology, had not had a new product in 10 years. Very frustrating to them. They were just selling their old stuff. They did the working genius, and there was no W at all. And people hated W. And there was only one I on the team, and he was their lawyer. So nobody in product, technology, or marketing had invention. And they were like, no wonder we haven't come up with a new product. We don't even spend any time in ideation. You know what they did? They put the lawyer in charge of new product acquisition. And
Wow.
and he goes, yeah, I would love to do that. That sounds fun to me, but I'm a lawyer. And they go, it doesn't matter. You see, it's like we think you went to law school, so therefore you. No,
Right?
it's like, what? How did God make you? Let's use how God made you. And he was like, and I looked 2 years later, he was full time in new products. even though he was probably sitting there going, "Oh, I love to invent things, but I went to law school. Maybe my grandfather and my
Mhm.
father were lawyers. I guess this is what," and they were like, "No, let's use what your skills."
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Because you do, you kind of get like, down one track and you think this is what I'm supposed to do. And then you wrestle with why am I not enjoying this? Why is this not life-giving? And again, that's why the tool is just so powerful.
And Jenny, when we have people on our team that aren't working out, if they fit the culture, we should almost never get rid of them. What we need to do, we talk about this like fitting the culture and being a good team player. That's getting the right people on the bus.
Right.
But then we have to get them in the right seat.
Yeah.
And you should
Yeah.
never kick someone off the bus just because the seat isn't quite right for them. And when we
Yeah.
do that, we send them out thinking they failed, and then we're like, why did we get rid of them? Oh, so I have a great story about this woman. She was in charge of sales for this medium-sized company, and they loved her. She was fantastic, great cultural fit. But then the market changed. It got turned upside down. And everyone loved her. Her staff loved her. The customers loved her. She always made her numbers. And they had to redo their strategy of how to go to market. And so the CEO says, okay, well, you're the head of sales. Come up with a new strategy. And she was like, she tried and tried, couldn't do it. And he said, I was thinking about, I guess I have to replace her. I have to let her go.
Mm,
They did the Working Genius as a team. She was an ET, which means she was great at taking care of customers, whatever they needed, and her
yeah.
people. And she really closed the deals. She didn't have any I or D. And they borrowed a guy from marketing that had I and D. He came to one of their meetings. 4 hours later, they had a new sales strategy. And they were like, can you come to our quarterly meetings and help us with this? Of course. And the CEO said, I almost fired one of my best people who was a cultural fit because
Hmm.
I thought that she was supposed to be good at everything.
Hmm. Yeah.
Nobody is good. We lose good people because we try to, and I love all the hearts that are going up now. There are so many people in the world who have been let go and felt like a failure because we just didn't understand who they were.
That's so good. Gosh. And, Pat, I talk about this a lot of times, and I know this is your heart, but I am just so convicted that leadership is the stewardship of people, that part of our
Oh,
responsibility as leaders is we've been entrusted with these people who are assembled to help us achieve a mission. And so, yes, we have to achieve the mission, whether it's business, ministry, whatever the context might be. But there are people that are here that as leaders, we get the sacred privilege of
mm.
helping develop them, draw out their gifts, and align those towards the mission. And so I just feel like Working Genius, you've just gifted us with this remarkable tool that helps us understand that better. It's just so powerful.
And it's handles for how to love somebody. I can't tell
Yeah,
you how many times in the last week where I've been working with people and I was tempted to judge them.
sure.
And
Yeah.
I looked at their working genius and their profile and I said, oh, wait, this is why you do this. And I was attributing it to their attention. You know what it is? Like we look at a person like me and it's easy to go, you're lazy or flaky. I would describe myself that way in a self, and people are like, you're not flaky at all, Pat. I'm like, yeah, but I don't finish things. They're like, well, you start 1,000 projects. And I'm like, oh, so I just lack that one thing. And I look at people that have G and T and E, and it's really easy to go, well, you're just not that creative. And they're like, well, actually, I get things done.
Hmm.
And so now that I go, you have geniuses that I don't have. And they're like, and you have geniuses I don't have. You don't have to have mine, and you don't have to have mine. We get to come together and celebrate. One of the great definitions of humility is to celebrate somebody else's gifts as though they
Oh,
were your own.
I love that. Yeah, that's
To go,
powerful. So
wow,
powerful.
you know? And so this gives us the language. And I loved when you said shared language. People that use Working Genius talk about it at work. Somebody will come up to them and they'll say, "Hey, I'm here's a thought I have," and they're like, "Are you G?" I say this all the time. Hey, I'm eyeing you right now, not G'ing you. I'm inventing.
Hmm.
I'm not asking you to do something. And they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I thought you wanted me to go run out and implement this." No, 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 please don't. I just want to throw this against the wall to see if it sticks.
I've had to learn to do that with my team too, is
Right.
saying, "Oh, I'm ideating right now. My invention is turned on. I'm not directing or like dictating yet. We're just in ideation mode." But such powerful language.
Yeah.
All right.
These 15 pairings are so helpful to people. When we first developed this map. My son was a big part of this, and Tracy and Cody and Karen and I. And we were like, oh, it's just the letter, the letter. But then we realized the difference between a WI and a WE is really different. So we actually have, like, you and I, Jenny, are both the discriminating ideators. That means we come up with ideas, but while we're doing it, we're actually evaluating it in real time.
Yep.
And we have to actually be comfortable saying, yeah, and that's what I do well. But then an ET is the loyal finisher. I am not the loyal finisher. Now, it breaks my heart to say that doesn't mean I'm disloyal, but like if somebody asks me to do something, I'm going to question it. I'm going to wonder about this. The loyal finisher just says yes, and you can count on me, and I will do everything I can, and I know that it will get done. I am not that person. And then the WI at the other end is the creative dreamer. Both of their geniuses are in ideation. My wife is a creative dreamer. We used to argue when things didn't get done around the house. And and I'm not proud of this at all, but I didn't know why. And when we did Working Genius, I was like, Laura, when she read the book, she said, oh, I love the book and I'm pissed. And I said, why? And she goes, I've been working outside of my genius for years. And you know what's interesting, Jenny?
Yeah.
When we first realized that, because we had 4 boys and she stayed home and raised them, she did Bible study and all kinds of things, but she does not have any, like the detail stuff. She hates the detail stuff. And I remember early on in our marriage, we didn't know about Working Genius. I said, Laura, why don't you outsource that? We could afford to have somebody come in and pay the bills for you because we'd forget to pay the bills and something happened. Or oh gosh, this is crushing me. And you know what she said? She said, no, I should do it because I have friends who are great at this, and it's not hard for them. See, they had different geniuses, and my wife said, I have to be as good at everything as everybody else.
Yeah.
When we did Working Genius, it was like, oh, so I actually had permission to say, I'm a WI. Our kids need the laundry done. We need to pay the bills, but maybe I don't have to do it. But she was so critical of herself.
That's huge. Yeah.
And now, literally now, we can go into the garage or in her office or in her room and it can be a mess and we can just kind of laugh. And we still try. Yesterday we had somebody over and it was a guest for lunch. And she was like, I should make something. And I said, no. It's not about that. But I should. Other people would. I have to be hospitable. And I'm like, yeah, why don't we get takeout and just talk to him? And it was so great. But she was going to do a bunch of work. She doesn't love to do that. I said, she loves to bake. I'm like, if you make him cookies, that would probably be cool. But let's take out.
Yeah.
And it was so fun. But she always had this guilt, like, but other people can make a steak dinner or a whatever else. And she's like, that's just not me. And it's like, that's all right.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's so good. I love the application because it's so applicable personally in our home life and in the work life. And so I love that you shared some of those stories. We've got several questions. So I want to hit
questions are my favorite things.
Yeah, I want to hit as many of them as we can in the next few minutes. Here's one. Have you found that certain geniuses are more or less common?
There are a few, but it's not one of those things like, oh, there's some that aren't out there at all, and that 90% of people or something like that. Not at all. Probably the most common, I think, is ET. But our hypothesis about that is that those are the things that every company needs them. And so as we're doing that in companies, ETs are immensely employable, right?
Yeah. Makes
the
sense.
least common, I believe, is WG, which is the philosophical motivator. And if you think about, they are like W, like, oh, I'm wondering, and then they're like, come on, let's go. And that can be a little disruptive.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
They're out there, and we know many very successful people that are that way, but they're like, oh yeah, those things kind of conflict, and sometimes they have to be careful not to combine them.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. And this question is, how is Working Genius different than Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, DISC, some of the other personality tools out there?
And I'm a junkie for all those things. The difference is this one is about the actual tasks. Because like I'm an ENFP, but it's like, so what should I do? What kind of work should I do? It's like, well, it depends. Like, what's my working genius? There's other people with my same Myers-Briggs type, which means we're extroverted, idealists, and all this other stuff. But they work in IT and I do this. It's like, oh, they have totally different working geniuses. So while they're idealistic, they love details.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a person, we love using both of them together, but the Myers-Briggs is more like the noun of like how you're the wiring of you as a noun. Working genius is the verb, how that plays out in getting things done.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's really good. That's
They
good.
talk to each other well. We love the combination of them.
Yeah, yeah. I feel the same way. I feel like they both give perspective, but I love the how we work together part of working genius. Um,
Yes.
so
And
powerful.
they're not correlated. We've really worked on that. We thought, well, aren't most
That's good
ENFPs
to know.
this? And we're like, nope.
You don't see that direct
No,
correlation. That's great to
no.
know. Here's one from somebody who says, how can I convince a CEO to open up to those assessments, the vulnerability around it, and see the value in it? I love your work, Pat, but I observe little acceptance to invite these tools as well as understanding how these tools can solve business problems. What's your suggestion? It's a leading up question on this.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, the first of all, have them just take it. It takes 12 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, yeah, if they're like, I hate these things, and we've had people do that. I actually had a guy in my office, a lawyer, who was the guy who argued the case before the Texas Supreme Court that made it illegal to use these things in hiring, to
Wow.
use any assessments.
Yep. Yep.
He did this one and he was like, oh crap. Everything he was giving people, he was like, this
Mm.
aligns with their working genius, huh? So it was super practical. So I would say if you have a skeptical person, I love skeptics because when you win them over, they're great. Just go, could you take this? It takes 10 minutes. Just fill it out. I'm going to show you a report. They're going to look at it and they're going to go, oh crap.
Hmm.
Yeah, my husband or my wife. Oh, I want to go home and tell them this because they immediately feel the relief of going, yeah, I'm allowed to say I don't love doing that. So that's the main thing. Try to get them to see it and to apply it. And then they're going to go, yeah, I want to know what everybody else's are. Because oftentimes they're sitting there frustrated with people on their team and they just have them organized incorrectly. Then there's the circle of influence, circle of concern thing. Try your best to get somebody to use it. That's the CEO or somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they just aren't open. But I think that this is one of those things, if you take the risk and go, please just fill this out and I want to show you a report, I really think they're going to go, you were right about this. You know, my
Yeah.
career was predicated on me being that guy they pushed into the CEO's office and said, you tell him. This
That's
is a
right.
safe one. This one really works.
Yeah, that's so good. I found that to be true too. This one people are more receptive to. Okay, I'll hit one or two more. We have so many good questions in here. Are some geniuses more aligned with leadership roles?
Great question. And the answer is, I'm going to say the answer is no, because we've seen CEOs, small, large companies, every kind of organization of all different types. The key is, do you know what you are? And do you surround yourself by people who fill in your gaps?
Yeah.
Okay. Having said that, one of the things, and I don't have it, and I'm the leader of my organization, it is one of my competencies, not a frustration, is there's more galvanizing like than sometimes we wish. But even that, you can be a great CEO as long as you can say to your executive team, I don't like to galvanize. I will do it sometimes. I will galvanize us here, but I need you guys to take this out and carry it forward. So the answer is no.
Hmm.
The answer is no. It really depends on the kind of organization too.
Ah,
You
sure.
know, there's certain
Yeah.
kind of organizations like if you're running a think tank, maybe some invention or maybe some discernment would be good. If you're running a factory, maybe having a little bit more tenacity. But even that, you could have a WI running a factory as long as they had a team around them and they filled in one of those gaps.
Yeah. It goes back to that awareness piece of, are we
Totally.
aware of the importance of all of them? And as a leader, do I understand where my geniuses are and where my frustrations are? And am I bringing people around me to help fill in those gaps?
All about
Pat,
self-awareness.
yeah, so good. Okay, we're coming up on time. I want to give you an opportunity. Guys, you shared so many good questions, and I'm going to share in a minute how we can help even answer a few more of those. But Pat, last comments or thoughts from you before we do a few final things to wrap up today?
Well, there's a question I just saw come up, and I think it's a wonderful one.
Go
And
for
that
it.
is, what about people who go, oh, assessments are self-limiting?
Great
This
question.
is so liberating
Hmm.
because everybody needs, I think it's just as powerful to say to somebody, why don't you make it clear to everybody what you really don't like and what you may very well suck at? And I find to be able to say to somebody, listen, I'm not a bad person and I'm not flawed and that I'm not terrible. I just don't like these things. It's like there's something even more liberating about shouting to the rooftops, I suck at this. And
Right.
have everybody else go, that's fine. Let's figure out how to use the things you have. So this is not like other things where you're putting me in a box. What we're saying is, let's get you out of the box that's
So good.
suffocating you.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing, and you can really change people's life. So we're in February, and so many couples. We know a church here in Nashville that's using this for pre-marriage stuff. We've had people say this changed my marriage. This saved my
So
marriage.
powerful. Yeah.
Because when you understand each other, you're like, oh, we thought we were fighting because it's because you're good at this and I'm not good at this, and you thought I was against you, but I'm for you. Changes life. So don't underestimate the power of understanding one another.
So valuable. Pat, thank you so much.
I'm
I
sorry
know
I
we
talked so much. I wish I could answer more questions.
no, so good. Well, and I know we've got a number of questions, but I'm going to give everybody a resource for potentially helping us kind of take it further. But I just thank you, Pat, for just your intentionality in both how you've invested in leaders for all of these years, been such an advocate for creating healthy organizations. I'm a recipient of the work that you've done, as I know so many people who have listened today are. So thank you for being with us today. So, so, so good.
Thank you,
Friends,
Jenny.
Friends, before you leave, couple of things. If you have not taken the Working Genius, and they've been sharing the link in the chat, but we do have, you can get 20% off the Working Genius assessments if you use our link. So if you need to take it with your team, be sure to use the Foresight link to do that. Um, we also do workshops around the Working Genius, and I know there were other facilitators in the chat as well. But if the Foresight team can help you with that, just comment in the chat and we'll get back in touch with you. And we'd be happy to just have a conversation about how can we help you do a workshop with your team and deep dive into the Working Genius. Everything Pat shared with us today, just go deeper with your team to help it really be an actionable tool and resource for your team. And then finally, we have something called the Lead Culture Network. And I have a special offer for everybody today that if you consider yourself a culture champion, somebody who wakes up every day thinking about how do I make my workplace better? How do I help build a thriving and healthy team? We have created the Lead Culture Network, which is the place where culture champions connect. And we're going to give you a free month in the network for being here today. If you use the code PAT, you're going to get your first month free in the network. And we're going to be spending the month of March deep diving on the Working Genius and how to use it with your team. So the questions you asked that we didn't get to, we will, and we can go to Pat and his team and get some answers if we can't answer them directly, but we'll deep dive inside the network to give you an opportunity to really put some of this into action with your team. So scan that QR code, use Pat as the code, and you'll get a free month. So you can just check that out and actually deep dive with us on the Working Genius. Friends, I'm so glad you were here today. What a gift to learn from Pat and have him teach us directly on the Working Genius. I know that you are committed to building healthy and thriving leaders, teams, and organizations because you made the time to be with us today. So we're so grateful. Keep leading well, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thanks, everybody.